Well, the current cost of living has proven to be a burden for all South Africans. But according to Stats SA, South Africans are out and about spending money they claim to not have, or the claim is not actually there. Despite our complaints that things are unbearably expensive, we seem to be flocking to bars and restaurants. So the total income generated by the food and beverages industry increased by 55% compared to July 2021. To discuss this further, consumer debt expert Moeshfieka Botha joins us now. Moeshfieka, thank you so much for your time this morning. I keep wondering about why we're seeing the significant increase. Is it that South Africans indeed have got more disposable income, which I highly doubt given the current economic climate? Or is it that we are actually psychologically reacting to being on lockdown or in lockdown for the past 2 years?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. I think it is the latter. I think South Africans were very, very hard hit on a social level and on a personal level by lockdown. We are a sociable people. We are people who like to personally interact. And I think South Africans are now just reacting. The stats are coming from a time after lockdown when South Africans have said, you know what, enough is enough. We want to personally interact. How long, though, we are going to be able to keep up with this personal interaction and spending via personal interaction is another thing. If you look at the 75 basis points at which the repo rate has just been hiked, it could be the end of quite a bit of social interacting for many, as many are now going to have to find disposable income for everything from a home loan to a personal loan to a credit card.
Sure. But of course, now when many are already using credit cards and are still using credit cards to pay for debt, which has been the story of many South Africans, that we spend at least, a third of our income just paying for debt alone, or 2/3. How then do we start keeping up? Because it actually sounds like it's unsustainable. Our need to connect, our need to interact with people is coming at an expense of just living.
Absolutely. It is unsustainable. And what is even more frightening is that people do not realize that they can only get so much credit. Credit is going to run out. Banks and creditors are going to get to the point where they say, well, you've maxed out your credit cards in terms of affordability, in terms of the parameters set out within the National Credit Regulator, by the National Credit Regulator, the National Credit Act. Giving to you to spend more would be reckless lending. So people are going to have to cut back. People are going to have to cut back so that they do have more money left to live on.
How do they do so practically now? We were making reference to how, for example, now the repo rate has gone up by 75 basis points. That already has seen exorbitant amounts that has been added to, for example, bonds, car payments and the like, right? So we've already been squeezed. I think we can't be squeezed anymore. This is coupled also with inflation, right? And the last time we said that inflation has reached a 13-year high or so. So we're squeezed on both ends, from a consumer perspective, buying goods and services, from bond repayments and the like. I'm just trying to think, how do we get out of this conundrum?
I think we have to first acknowledge that we are in one. Many South Africans can see it. But they are still in denial. We actually need to get in control of our own financial health and financial well-being. We've got to take out those bank statements. We've got to literally physically take them out or look at them on our screen and know exactly what our financial situation is. Denial is never a good place to be in, particularly with your finances, particularly at this point in time. If you have extra cash and you're still spending, you should definitely be looking at ways of cutting down. And then when cutting down, taking that money and putting it into your debt. Get your debt done first. Try and get out of debt. If you can't think that you can do it yourself, read up on how you've got to do it. Look at your debt with your highest interest rates. Look at those debts first. Any disposable cash that you might have, pay it into the debt that has the highest interest rate. According to the National Credit Act, you have the option, if you are over-indebted, of using the services of a debt counsellor. I'm always urging people, every single fraternity, every single time people speak to me about debt counsellors, but there's good ones, there's bad ones. Check the eNCA, make sure that they are registered. More than anything else, be responsible and start speaking to your creditors. If you don't want to go the way of debt review, then speak to your creditors. Make it known that this is what my situation, this is what's happening. But more than anything else, ask the questions. I would also encourage every South African out there to make use of the free credit report that we get from every credit bureau once a year. Know your financial situation, start budgeting, start cutting down. And again, we are looking at more repo hikes. And that is going to make things very, very difficult, especially with rising fuel costs, rising food costs, and rising costs overall. We need to start cutting down. We need to start eliminating our debt. And more than anything else, we need to stop worrying about the opinions of others in how much we socialize, how much we go out, how much we spend, because the opinions of others surely don't pay our bills.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right with that, that the opinions of others don't actually help pay our bills. I'm just wondering now in terms of who this is actually affecting. So we're talking right now about how even though South Africans are tightly squeezed from all ends, right, they are still flocking to bars, restaurants, spending money that they may actually not have. But I keep wondering whether or not the poor are even able to access the very same bars and the restaurants that we're speaking of. And I go on the other side of it and say the rich. Are the rich doing so? I mean, given the inequalities that we find ourselves in the South African context, we are literally one of the most unequal countries in the world. So we're sitting in a system where the rich are rich and they keep getting richer and their options are still available to them. The poor don't have the option and the luxury. I'm just trying to think, then who is it that is being squeezed and frequenting restaurants at this moment?
Well, you've also got to look at the makeup of South Africa and its emerging middle class. We keep on saying that middle class has been hit hard. Middle class has been hit hard, but we do have a middle class and an upper middle class, which are also thriving. These are the people that have taken advantage of what the situations with COVID has brought. These are also the people with the side hustles. These are also the people who are not necessarily saving any money and using their disposable income and saying, you know what, I deserve a night out. I want to have a little bit of fun. I am tired of whatever it is that COVID has brought. And so I am spending what I have. We do know that there's a vast difference between the emerging middle class and the existing middle class, especially where savings is concerned. An upper middle class Black person does not have the same savings as an upper middle class white person. So we are looking at different ways in which people within the same income bracket are handling their money.